creating space for what matters most for your growth and conscious parenting. So I know some of you may know that I kicked off premium sometime this week, and I realized that, you know what, to be able to build a community, then we need to be having some of these burning conversations as often as possible. And so yeah, so that's why we are part of the conversations that we're having today. And then also also going to be having them in themes. So the theme for this month of April is building foundations, and this week is focused on creating space for what matters most for you and, you know, for the people around you. So not just children, you know, but for the people around you, because when you grow and when you transform, then, you know, everything around you also transforms. So part of what we're talking about today is how we can declutter from the things that are allowing us or are preventing us, you know, to grow or from growing and parenting or being the best version of ourselves. You know, and some of the practical techniques that I use, particularly for those, I mean, a lot of us have busy schedules, and you know, some of the practical things that we can do to eliminate some of the clutters in our lives. So I think from a high level perspective, how I dimension clutters is in three pillars. So we have the mental clutter, or your mental space, your emotional space, and your physical space. So for the mental space is your internal bandwidth. It's like what are you focused on? What is taking up your attention, you know, at this time? What are the things that help you to think clearly or to make good decisions or even to just be fully present, right? Your physical space is quite straightforward. Your environment, your workspace, your study. For those of us who have children, maybe their play spaces, you know, and all of that. And then your emotional space. Your emotional space is more the capacity to how you feel, you know, your feelings, your this is the kind of space where, you know, if you're not feeling very good or you're feeling overwhelmed, then, you know, rather than responding, you know, adequately, you are replacing it with reactions that you now go back, and then you realize that, oh, maybe you've overreacted, you know, and all of that. And whether your mental space or your physical space or your emotional space, if it's cluttered, then, you know, it directly impacts how you show up in the world, and how it also affects your parenting. So we need to be able to make some intentional choices so that we can nurture ourselves, our growth, and our children, and of course the people that we care about effectively. So, I mean, we all know that if you ever felt like you can't think straight, or there's just too much happening around, this is something that happens to us a lot of the time when we cannot really think straight, or things are just happening around us, and you just feel like, you know what, I just feel so overwhelmed. I'm sure you know that we all feel like that. And these three spaces are really deeply interconnected. I mean, we know about the science behind and the research behind even how physical clutter takes up your mental real estate. So, I mean, we're not going to be dwelling so much into that, but really, when our spaces are cluttered, it affects how we think creatively. It affects how even our emotional regulation happens. It affects how we solve problems. It affects our empathetic connection. It affects even how we learn and how we respond to, you know, the people around us. So, for instance, I think was it sometime last week or so, I felt a bit overwhelmed. Well, not a bit, a lot, and I had to begin to process. Okay, what exactly it is that was going on with me, right? And we're also going to be talking about some of the practical things that I did at the time. So, for instance, for mental clutter, for instance, we are looking at the never-ending to-do lists, overthinking, decision fatigue, you know. For physical clutter, well, you know, I talked about your home environment, your work environment, you know, and all of that. Your emotional clutter, unresolved feelings, hurts, conversations that you probably need to have or you haven't had, And I think a key takeaway would be the more clutter we carry, the less room for our growth, for our joy, and the ability to just live, learn, and show up. Last weekend was a bit very off for me, and until I had to, resolve what I needed to resolve. And in taking stock, I realized that okay, so it was partly overwhelmed from the never-ending to-dos, and it was also a lot that had to do with conversation that I needed to have. So I needed to have conversations with my spouse, and it had left some unresolved feelings. And then I stepped out for a while, came in and I had those conversations, and I felt lighter. And I just realized that it was easier for me to just carry on, even though the to dos didn't stop. I mean, I just felt lighter, and I realized that it was easier for me to begin to just move on. And it just felt easier the journey just felt easier. And it was also partly why I say, what, these are some of the things that we need to talk about. It's something that happens to every one of us, and if we are on this journey, then we need to be intentional enough to understand some of these triggers. A few years ago, before I started my intentional parenting journey, I would feel overwhelmed and I would wallow in it for days, because I didn't really have the mental capacity to understand, to name what I was feeling and understand it in a way that would give me um in a way that would give me the what I needed to know to actually be on the track to coming out of that overwhelm. But and that's partly why it's important to live in an intentional way, because you start to you start to how do I put it? You, you start to find it easier to name some of the things that you're feeling. And I mean, it doesn't take away the fact that you're going to feel those overwhelm, but then you are able to know, okay, this is what I'm feeling, this is why I'm feeling what I'm feeling, and this is what I need to do, to get out of this. So I think this just helps us to really, stay on track and really become the version of ourselves that we intend to be. Because don't forget that when we live intentionally, when we show up, when we live, love, learn intentionally and show up, we're doing that for not just for ourselves, but for the people around us. So, okay. So how does clutter affect our ability to grow and parent intentionally? Like, for example, I had given, I realized that I just couldn't, there was really nothing around me that was making sense. I wasn't interested in anything that was going on, I just wanted to be. And it was more of, okay, what's going on, what's wrong? And I was just, I wasn't really interested in whatever it is that was happening in the house. And of course, that would have also sent a signal to my children, to my spouse. And that wasn't really what the kind of signal that I wanted to be sending. So again, is to understand that when you have this kind of feelings, it's important to take action as soon as possible, because you're not just doing it for yourselves, you're also doing it for the people around you. So how do you declutter normally, right? We need to take it a step at a time. We need to understand that it's not something it's a journey, it's not a destination. There is so much that goes on, so much information. A lot of things can be so overwhelming. Simple activities like just journaling, taking a quick walk. I had to go out first. It was after I had gone out. I just took a drive out on my own, and it helped me to process my thoughts. And then I came home, and then I that was when I was able to have the conversation. So you see, I knew I needed to have a conversation because, like I said earlier, partly why, or the major reason why I was, the major reason what was really causing my own emotional clutter was unresolved conversation, unresolved hurt, and deeper conversation that I needed to have. But I just couldn't get around to having those conversations until I stepped out. So, I mean, you also need to understand what works for you. It could be journaling, it could be, just shutting down and just, having some time to yourself. It could be going out to be going for a walk. I took a drive, and then it was when I came back, I realized that, okay, you know what, it was time to, I was now able to have the conversation. So yes, so, you need to also be able to understand the triggers and the antidotes to those triggers, right? So yes, you could, for your children, because this is also being able to model this habit for them. You could create a clarity corner, a simple um space where you could, either your child can go to, to have, to just have, some of this me time. So I remember, I think that was maybe 2 3 days ago. I had done, it was a mentally overwhelming day. So I had mental clutter in my space, mental clutter. So, after we had wrapped up, I had told my children that, you know what, I needed me, myself, and I time. Okay, so I had come to the living room, and we had already wrapped up for the night, and I was reading a book. And then they came again. I said, no, 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 no. This is me, myself, and I time. I said, okay, me, myself, and I said, yes, me, myself, and I time. I needed to recharge. And then the younger one goes, okay, yeah, that's fine. She took a book and started reading. She went to her own corner. And then the older one, that one is more, she's more, she likes the whole connection thing more. So she said she was going to have a me, myself, and I time with me. I said, no way. That's why it's called me, myself, and I time. So you find your own time, to have those, to be by yourself. And then, I would also do the same. At the end of the day, we laughed about it. But I think some of these things to show that, it's okay. You need to model these habits to them, to let them know that it's okay to be by yourself. It's okay to shut down. It's okay to just not want to do anything, or or be with anyone for 30 minutes, 1 hour, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, depending on what it is that you need to sort out. So those are some of the ways to, the practical ways that I am implementing, and work for me. And of course, that can also be, that can also be used by every one of us. So yeah, so your home should be a tool that supports your family growth and not a source of stress. So these are some of the ways that you can model safe spaces in your home, right? Right. You could also try morning mind resets. So I do this a lot. I mean, mornings are really my best time. I wake up in the morning, and, like, my head is so relaxed. I spend about 30 minutes to 1 hour, depending on what it is that I'm doing. And I spend those times to just kind of connect with myself, take a moment to breathe. Sometimes I journal, depending on how the mood. Sometimes I'm just reflecting. Sometimes, a lot of times, answers to things, nagging issues come to me at that time, because I'm just relaxing. And sometimes I write down my thoughts, because sometimes you even need to, and these are some of the ways to even identify what exactly it is that is currently taking up space. You know, I used to be in I used to be in a time when I couldn't even name some of the emotions that I was feeling, or some of the clutter that was taking up my space. But when you intentionally practice these things, you realize that you are even able to, quickly write down, okay, so what are some of these things that are happening, right? And this comes from intentional practice. When you do it over and over again, when you journal, you are quickly able to identify or pinpoint these areas that are unresolved, that need attention. Oh, great. Gabriela says, I'm also doing some of these just without a routine. I try to take advantage of any moment I have between kids pick up, chores, work. Exactly, exactly. I do this a lot too. Even maybe I'm going to pick up the children usually when I'm driving, and mornings are a great those are the times that I think, from what I've experienced or from understanding myself, I think those are the two main. And then, yeah, when I'm in the bathroom is also a very good time for me to reflect. So I realize that these are the times that I just start having thoughts coming. I just start having thoughts, coming. And I realize that, sometimes I'm just doing something, I stop what I'm doing, and then I take notes on my phone, or, on my laptop, or, on my pad, or on a journal or a notebook. If it's maybe when I'm driving, and I know, I just make a mental note to quickly do that when I get home. You write down those thoughts, you realize that they just help you to there's something about writing things down. I don't know if anyone experiences, but there's something about writing things down that you realize that it just helps you think clearly. And especially when you have to go back to those notes that you've written, you're able to connect some dots that you could have written something down, maybe two separate notes at two different times. But then when you go back to start reading those things you've journaled after a while, you just realize that, you can actually connect the dots, right? So I do that a lot as well. So yeah, yeah, driving works well for me. Early in the mornings work well for me. And when I'm in the bathroom, so that works well for me. Yeah, so thank you, Gabriela. um so yeah, when you make time to do take out to intentionally carve out some of these practices, you realize that when things are going off, you are able to immediately pinpoint, okay, so what is going on here? You can immediately sense, and you can immediately tell what it is taking up your space. Because it's one thing to just feel restless and feel like, oh, you're just, but it's another thing to be able to really pinpoint what exactly it is that you're feeling part time, right? And, ask yourself questions like, when you're able to write those things down, and this works for both physical clutter, mental clutter, emotional clutter, right? Once you are aware of what is taking up your space, then you need to be able to evaluate, okay, does this thing really and truly deserve to stay in my life? So some of the questions I would ask myself typically are, does this thing contribute to the person that I want to become? And this is really where your values as a person come in, right? Your values as a person, your values as a family. What are the principles, the goals, the values, the mission, the vision that you share, or that you all share for your family. If this doesn't contribute to who you are becoming, first as a person, and then secondly as the family that you're building, then of course it needs to go. Does it contribute to the life that you want to create with your children? You don't have to be everywhere and everything to everybody. For me, family would always come first before any other person or any other thing. And so I don't have to be everywhere. I don't have to be in all conversations. I don't have to be in everybody's radar. So I would ask myself, does this contribute to the life I want to create for my children? And then if I encounter this today for the first time, would I choose to give it space? Is it something that I would choose to give space to? Then if it is, then I make space for it. If it's not something that is contributing to any of these things, then I don't make space for them, right? Particularly in the world where we are now, so much information to take in, so much going on out there. We need to really intentionally sieve out what it is that we're listening to, what it is that we are taking in as information, because there's so much clutter out there. There's so much clutter that out there waiting to coming into our lives if we allow it. So we need to intentionally, you know, ask ourselves these hard questions all of the time, right? So and then of course after evaluating, then we go ahead and actually clear clear those spaces. Sometimes some things just simply need to go. some something just simply needs to go. Sometimes we are probably reframing some things, maybe in a way that would suit us better. So maybe we've had some conversations, and then you know well, okay, if we're going to do this, then it has to be this way, it has to be that way. So yes, so sometimes we have to reframe. Sometimes we have to do an outright replacement, or if we don't even necessarily have to replace anything, but then we remove. And if we don't have to replace rather, then we don't have to replace, right? So we need to really protect our mental spaces, our emotional spaces, our physical spaces, because we so that we can create the real space for what matters for ourselves as we grow, as we go on this journey of our intentional growth, of our personal well-being, personal development, for ourselves first, that would now be modeled for our children. Then we really need to do it in an environment that is safe for ourselves, and then know, that is automatically modeled or transferred to our children. So that's like a high level of what some of the practical things that I'm currently doing to be able to create these spaces. My newsletter for the article for Saturday is going to cover some in-depth conversations around this as well. But I felt that this was just a good way to kind of throw it, out there and have this conversation, and also to be able to reach out from a community perspective and have these conversations. So if you would like to maybe say something else, or maybe ask any question, that's fine. We can look at it together and discuss it together. Right, yeah. So this is the time to maybe take comments or questions, you know, practical ways, that I'm dealing with this situation, or any other thing that comes to mind around just generally creating safe spaces for ourselves and for our children, as we nurture ourselves, and also, nurture our children in this increasingly distracting world. Yeah. So, would there be any questions, any comments that we can all look at together? I don't see any. I don't see any. Okay, so I'll probably just start rounding up. I wanted this first session to be about 30 minutes thereabout. So, and I think we're almost at 30 minutes mark. But I think just rounding up, and I sincerely hope that you've, picked just one thing at least that you can actually run with. That's my intention, for you to be able to pick something that you can run with, as we round up this session. I think more importantly, the first thing that comes to mind when it comes to clearing or decluttering or creating space for what matters most is to first understand that, or well, what I like to call, or the way I would like to partition the three kind of clutters, or the three kind of spaces that we really need to protect. First is our mental space, and then our physical space, which is really the most obvious, and then our emotional space. And then I think the second thing that we need to know is the fact that the first step is actually becoming aware of what is actually occupying your space, because we really don't realize how cluttered our lives are until we start to take inventory. And understanding what the kind of clutter that lives in our lives, it really it's something that you understand more as you cultivate these intentional practices. You realize that you are able to it's something that comes to you more naturally as you cultivate these intentional practices. So I encourage you all to just, take time out depending on what works for you and your routine. Like I said, I'm somebody who I love mornings a lot. So I usually do these practices mostly in the mornings, and then maybe during the day when I get a chance, usually when I'm driving alone. Yeah, it's also a good time for me. And then when I'm in the bathroom, morning, afternoon, night, anytime I'm in the bathroom, I realize that I'm able to just keep that process and these thoughts. And if you journal, please, these are also great ways to have these thoughts in your mind, put them down. There's something that writing does, it kind of just brings clarity. And I think for me, the one that works like magic a lot is when I'm able to connect the dots from what I've written, in previous times, and then what I'm writing currently, or maybe just flipping through my journal and then I see something that really resonates, right? It's something that really works like magic for me. So I think with that, you are on the path towards decluttering. And physical decluttering, again, is something that I think somehow maybe we also do not, maybe we also underestimate, or maybe I used to underestimate physical decluttering, the effect it would have on my mental and emotional well being, right? So it's also something that we need to also pay attention to. I mean, it's easy to just have something and keep it, and meanwhile, it's not serving you any purpose. It's probably something that you're probably not going to use in a very long time, particularly when you have children who who are always doing different crafts, or handcrafted things, arts, and all of that. It's easy to just pile up junk within a week or within 2 weeks, so particularly when they're on holidays. So it's something that I've also incorporated into my space and into my routine activities to always, you know, clean out desks, clean out study areas, clean out play areas, and get them involved while doing this, right? Getting them to understand why you need to declutter, right? So you realize that, keeping your spaces free as well helps you in the long run to also protect your mental space, your emotional space, your physical space for what really matters most. All right. Thank you so much. Again, I hope that you've been able to pick something, even if it's just one thing. I would really be glad to if you have picked one thing today, and and incorporate into your own routine, your own lives. And I'm hoping that that with that you'll be able to continually create those kind of spaces, for the things that you really treasure, for the things that you really value, and for the things that matter most to you. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you, Raul. Thank you, Gabriela. Thank you, Caroline. Thank you, Sue. I'm really honored to have you join my first live, and hopefully, we're going to keep making this edit. Thank you very much, everyone. And this is where the session ends today. Bye. Oh, someone just thank you, Judith. Hi, Judy. We're just ending. Thank you so much, but I'm sure you're going to be able to catch a replay. We're just finished the session. Thank you for joining. I really appreciate everyone. Thank you. Bye.